Welcome back to the Pulse with Willie and Al. How's it going today, bro?
Willie, living the dream, man. Living the dream. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Yeah. Another night, another episode, 30th
Yeah.
episode of the
Woo!
Pulse, baby. All right.
The
This is
show's
our
approaching middle age, kids.
It
Middle
is.
age.
And this is our Dirty 30 episode. So
Yeah.
we're definitely happy to be back again. Just want to remind you guys before we hop into everything here with the Week 15 NFL stories, just want to remind you guys, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the video. If you don't like it, well, well, we love those too. So
Tell us.
yeah, tell us. Definitely drop a comment and let us know why you don't like it though. But let's hop into this first. Big news out of LA. Big news. We got the Chargers finally fire Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco. Al, take
Ding
it away,
dog, the
bud.
witch is dead. Oh, man. I could not send this to you fast enough when it happened. And I was giddy. I was giddy because, like, it took the Raiders scoring 63 points on them for management to be like, you know what? Maybe this guy isn't a good coach.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not.
It wasn't the
Oh, I
seven or
just,
eight
I'm
fourth
not.
downs, right?
No. Oh my God. I'm gonna miss him a little bit because we love dumping on him on this show, and every week he makes a really bad decision. Um, Weirdly, the Raiders game, he didn't make any bad decisions. He just didn't have Justin Herbert, and the
Yeah.
Raiders decided after losing 3-0 the week before, that they were like, we've had enough of this shit, and yeah,
There we go. I mean, I
yeah,
just had a weird premonition too. You know who it was that disliked our video? It was definitely a Chargers fan. Definitely. It had to have been. But any self respecting Chargers fan wouldn't have disliked that. They would have been like, yeah, get this guy out of here. So maybe we're back at square one again. But
honestly,
let's,
if you're a Chargers fan, like that's your first mistake.
yeah.
So
I mean, I don't blame them.
respectfully,
There's people that grew up there. They're trying to, well, in LA, San Diego, all over the place, right, for the Chargers. But
yeah,
I support them supporting their team, right? Like that's an
sure,
admirable thing to do. Of course, I grew up in
yeah.
New England, didn't support them, but that's another another story, right? So
We all can't be right,
no,
We all
no.
can't be right.
But we were right about Brandon Staley. We were right about him last year when they lost to Jacksonville. We were right about him this year every time he went for it on fourth down and didn't get it in his own territory. And we were right about it now, right after he got fired for, losing by, 50 something points. So, well, it wasn't 50 something, but he lost by enough. They hung 63 on him.
40,
So,
42.
yeah.
Yeah, he lost by 42.
Okay. So,
Um, yeah, no, they should have fired him after that playoff game
yeah.
last year.
Yep.
You and I had been talking about that even when it happened. Like, I remember talking to you the next day after that game and being like, oh, they're going to fire him.
Yeah.
They're going to fire him.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Shocking. Absolutely
Yeah.
shocking. And we talked about that actually on our first podcast together too. Kind of crazy. So he
Yeah.
made it through 30 podcasts or one full NFL, almost one full NFL season before he got fired again. So, but let me
Yeah.
ask you, who do you think obviously this is a great landing spot. Tons of talent up and down on this roster. Herbert still in
Yeah.
his maximum prime window to maximize all the talent that's around him. Yes, Keenan Allen's getting a little bit older, but hopefully Mike Williams is going to be back next year. You got Bosa, Mack, Derwin James on the opposite side, plus Asante Samuel Jr. I mean, this roster's loaded with talent. The line, especially, right? Like they've got some really good linemen on this team. What do you think's going to end up happening? Like who's going to end up coming here?
I I don't think this is actually going to happen, but my worst nightmare is that Bill Belichick, the Patriots are like, hey, thanks for everything, man, but you got to go. Because what I assume is going to happen with the Patriots, quick sidebar, is that I think they want to keep him on as head coach, but I think they're going to relieve him of the player personnel responsibility. And I don't think Bill's going to want that.
Right.
And I think it's going to become a tug of war. And I think they're going to let him go ultimately.
Y-
And if that's the case, if he goes to the Chargers, like fuck me,
Yeah.
like
Listen, there's been rumors swirling about it. It's just tough because you don't know what to believe. And every time you believe something, it's like, oh, yeah, like we heard earlier in the season, he was gone and he's going to get fired, this and that. And then all of a sudden, the video surfaces of him shirtless on some porch last summer. And then the news comes
no,
out
this
that
was this fall.
oh, was it
This
this
was this
fall that
fall.
came out?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
all of a sudden, we find out too that supposedly he signed a 3-year extension in the offseason and wasn't going
yeah,
anywhere. So it's like every time we think we know what's going on with the Patriots and their organization, we don't. They're one move ahead, and they're playing chess while we're stuck playing checkers. So I'd really like to see him there. I think it'd be amazing to see him go. Almost similar to the way that Brady left New England, went to Tampa Bay, had a bunch of good
mm,
players around him there, and I think Bill
yeah,
could maximize a lot of the talent out there. But I don't know. I mean, LA's going to have good draft capital. There's a really good chance of them having a top 10 pick in this draft. Right now, I
sure.
think they're number 9. But I definitely think they're going to have, a top 10 pick. Also, I mean, I just think with the location, there's too much upside to that. They're going to bring in a new GM as well, someone that hopefully when the owner sits down and thinks about hiring a coach, they have that conversation about a GM that's going to be on the same page. Because any of
Yeah,
the teams that have been very successful, you look at the GM and the head coach are in sync with each other, right? So it's something I'd really like to see for that. I I don't know why Kellen Moore's name's not coming up at all. I think there's other people ahead of him in the league, but I don't know why he's not, at least like his name isn't swirling around in rumors for that.
yeah. I first of all, my issue with the Chargers is they seem like Mike Williams is a perfect example of this. Mike Williams is a dude that gets hurt every year,
Every year,
and
multiple
and
injuries
it
too.
just and it just feels like they're always the team that just gets hit with injuries every
Hmm.
year. They just have a bunch of dudes, really good players, but they always get hurt,
Hmm.
and like that's and they just don't have any depth. Like you know what I mean? Like that's and and this year, losing Bosa really hurt. Like that
Yeah.
really hurt them. But
Eckler
they,
too. I mean, okay, so he got a little banged up at the beginning, but this is a guy that scored upwards of 20 touchdowns the last 2 fantasy seasons. He's been essentially a non-factor this year. I
yeah,
don't know how you got to figure out a way to scheme him open in some way. It doesn't seem like they've tried to use him even close to the way he's been used in the past, which was very effective for them. I don't know. Keenan Allen's playing out of his mind this year because he's the only target now with Mike Williams gone. I
yeah,
don't know. A lot of it is just mismanagement all over the place.
yeah. Keenan Allen is a lot like Mike Evans, where like dudes that just are consistently putting up 1,000 yard seasons, and you don't talk about them.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I was watching a bit of the Bucks game Sunday, and I forgot. I sometimes forget that Mike Evans plays football, and then you watch a Bucks game, and you're like, oh, he's wide open again, and he scored another touchdown.
He
Cool.
is probably the the one player over the last 10 years, and now I've played fantasy football for 20 years now. He's probably the one player in the last 10 years that I've doubted every single year and been wrong about. And I just don't learn my
Yeah,
lesson. I don't. Even last
yeah.
year, he sucked all last year. It was brutal to watch him last
Still
year.
put up 1,000 yard season though.
Not only
Like,
that, but he also put up 55 points in fantasy playoffs in the last week of the season. Like it was, and
yeah,
don't forget that week was the week with the DeMar Hamlin incident. So it like
yeah,
put a big crux in terms of fantasy playoffs. Obviously, we care more about his health than anything else, but it's just an interesting thing that week that had come up. But yeah, I don't know. Keenan Allen, you're right. Like guys that people will kind of forget about. I haven't forgotten him this year. I've got him in multiple leagues and I've loved it. But anyhow,
Austin
hopefully,
Eckler is the reason I got booted so early from Guillotine League.
yeah, yeah, because he
It
ended up
sucks.
getting hurt. Him and Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones sucked all year. So
Yeah,
that's
that's on me.
yeah, that's a rough one. But Anyhow, so Buffalo, let's move on to them because this is kind of an interesting one. Now, they absolutely smashed the Cowboys when the Cowboys visited Orchard Park. So it seems like when the Cowboys have away games, they get crushed, but at home, they're, really, really sticking to their boots. So, I mean, they've been able to hang their hat on their defense all year, but it was not in this game, man. They gave up, not only did they give up 31 points, they got demolished on the ground. Demolished.
Yeah.
What did you think of this game?
Yeah. So this was pretty evident early on that the Cowboys just weren't going to show up to play. They got really up for that Eagles game, and they won a big game that they needed to win. But really, what this kind of shows me is still the same old Dallas Cowboys, who right now are just fortunate that the Eagles are kind of in a free fall,
Yep.
and they might back their way into a division title at this point. Like, but what I saw of them Sunday, like that game was horrific.
Yeah.
Like Buffalo ran for 266 yards on them. That's just fucking embarrassing.
Yeah.
That is embarrassing because the defense that they have should not have allowed that to happen.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
you hear it like, okay, teams can have bad games, this and that. They made James Cook look like Adrian Peterson.
James Cook, ever since Dorsey's been fired, has been lights out.
Yeah, I know he has.
Lights out as a runner. Like it's insane.
He's been the better Cook brother
Also,
this year for sure.
oh, absolutely. Also, the fact that Josh Allen only had to throw it 15 times.
15 times, man. They ran the ball 49 times.
Yeah,
49. Like I mean,
that
Josh Allen, like it was funny. Did you see the post game interview that they had with Josh Allen?
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
him.
he was like, I feel like the kid in the group
Yeah,
project that
yeah.
didn't contribute anything, got an A plus.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
I look at that and I don't know. For me, I find that really funny. But I think to really encapsulate what happened in this game, I mean the text you sent me was Dallas being Dallas today. And that's
yep.
exactly what like sorry, John.
And I
You
knew
know?
sending that to you, like you knew exactly what I
Yep.
meant by that.
Yep.
Like that's
It,
yeah, they're just the same old Cowboys who can't win a big game. Like they needed that game.
it's amazing what the press does to sports. Where the press is off Denver's back, and all of a sudden Denver goes on like an absolute tear. And yeah, they got slowed up a little bit this weekend. I get that. They got beat by Houston before. Like, okay, so they lost a few games, but like they were crushing teams. I say crushing them, but beating teams on a rampant pace after starting off just pathetic, right?
Yeah,
Now, like we spent the majority of the beginning of the season bashing Buffalo. Remember, they went to London, they started losing guys left and right to injury, and Josh Allen, like just all over his back and stuff. Now they're back in the playoff hunt as one of the 5 teams sporting an 8-6 record. And I look at that and it just, I
yeah,
mean, they had 2 impressive wins now over Kansas City, who we still really don't know who they are. Uh, it, they're clearly not the Chiefs of last year, and I know it reminds me. You had said before, like, okay, you're not the king until you beat the champs and stuff, but this king looks like one that aged 10 years in the last year. You, you
yeah.
know,
This is a champ this year. You can get him. Like you can get him, and like
yeah. But I mean, Dallas to win over that, I mean, these are 2 teams that people consider to be playoff bound. So I look at that and I say,
yeah,
okay, those are reputable wins by Buffalo. This isn't a Miami team that we're talking about where Miami's saying, or we've had the discussion that Miami can't beat anybody, legit. When I look at this now, I'm saying, okay, well, Buffalo can hang with these teams. And it's when I look at this, no team that's going to win the division wants to play Buffalo in the first round.
no.
Not one
And
of
same
those
thing with
teams is like,
Cincinnati.
yeah, yeah,
Same thing with Cincinnati right now.
yeah,
You want none of that.
dude. I'm not going to say okay. So Jamar Chase is hurt. I get that. So we may have more T Higgins that we see, but Browning is he's that dude, man. Like, okay,
Yeah,
he's not Joe Burrow, but he's that dude that got pissed off by getting cut, and he's worked his butt off. And you see the way that he gets fired up and plays, dude. putting up massive points. I don't think there's ever been a quarterback since what 1995 they were saying that has had as many passing yards in his first 4 games as Jake Browning has.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, also the thing with Buffalo right now too, to go back to them real quick, they still have a lot of work to make the playoffs.
yeah,
That's the thing. They're still sitting at, I think, number they're ninth right now
yeah,
in playoff seed. Like they have to overtake Houston and they have to overtake Indianapolis.
yep. But I think
And
they're going
like
to
that's
weed each other out in that division because you've got Jacksonville, Houston, and Indy all tied right now. I mean,
yeah.
we're going to get into them, but very interesting what's going to happen there.
And Buffalo's schedule the rest of the way is pretty kick. It's the Chargers, they play the Patriots, and then end of the year against the Dolphins, where that game might not matter for Miami if they have the 1 seed wrapped up.
But this is the
Or they have like the 2 seed wrapped up.
this is the
Like it's
thing.
not gonna that's not gonna matter.
But think about this. If they have the 2 seed wrapped up and Buffalo is that last playoff team, they do not want to play Buffalo again. That's a
No.
trap game. So Miami may have to come out and really try to punch them in the mouth because if they don't, they're going to give away a lot in that game. They do not want to turn around the next week and have to play them again. That could be really dangerous for them. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on here real quick because I know there's a bunch of stuff that we want to talk about with that, and I want to mention Miami coming up here in a second. But Rodgers being cleared to play this week, I mean, the Jets are eliminated from the playoffs. I understand he's out there saying like, "Yes, I want to do this." It just seems like a very bad idea to me. Uh,
Yeah. First of all, this is just him not being able to stay out of the spotlight. That's 100% what that is. Two, I agree. Like, there's no, you don't have to prove anything. Like, this team isn't going to make the playoffs. Just rest, recoup. Like, we get it. You were able to come back, and
Mhm.
that's a cool story. But like, just dude, that offensive line is so bad. Like, if he comes back, there's a world where he could get really hurt, and then
They got a chance to
yeah,
reload. Like I think just be thankful, rest up, make sure you're fully healed, and then really make a go at it next year because that's a very difficult. That's going to be a difficult team to beat next year if he's healthy.
yeah.
Very
Well, and if
difficult.
they fix that offensive line,
Yep,
because that offensive line is
they're going to go and get some help.
horrifically bad.
They've already said they're going to try to go after Devontae, bring him in. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But let's
Yeah.
talk about another premier receiver. We got Miami with Tyreek Hill having the injury, which I know we had discussed a tiny bit about that, but you were saying you were a bit confused watching that Monday night game with him.
Yeah, so like he got hurt and then he like came back in and then like they pulled him again and he was like kind of like on the sidelines kind of like running up and down like being like, oh, in my brain I was like, okay, cool, they're gonna put him back in, and then they never put him back in, and like respectfully they could have used him out there because they Miami blew that game, and that was one of the weirder games I've watched.
Yep.
Yeah, so and then he didn't play against the Jets, which again, that's fine. Like I think they were like, I think Miami was like, hey, I think we can beat this team without you.
And they were right.
Take a week to rest.
Yeah.
They were very right, or were they? But they're going to really need him the next 3 weeks because they got what, Dallas, Baltimore, and Buffalo. Like,
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say, man. Like looking at those games, that's scary. Think about this for a second. Okay, so they play Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo. Them winning all 3 of those games, I think, is going to be difficult. Say they lose all 3, right? They'll
yeah.
probably still make it into the playoffs. They probably will because they've won enough games to be able to do that. My
Well,
issue,
I think the Baltimore game is going to be really the big test because they're
yeah,
1 game back of Baltimore. And if they can beat Baltimore, they're going to have the head to head on them going into that last week in Buffalo, and then they're going to have to play everyone
they're
that
not going
last
to beat.
week.
I don't think they're going to beat Dallas. And I think they're
I
going to
think they
be.
are.
Oh man, I think they'll be
I
two
think they
games
are.
back when they play Baltimore, and I think Baltimore might even be. It could be closer because I don't think Baltimore wins this week either. That's my opinion. But I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead. Let me just say this:
Yeah.
regardless of whether they win, lose, any of that stuff, Miami's probably going to make the playoffs. I would say.
Oh yeah. I think they're going to be a 2 seed at worst.
If they win out, say they go to the Super Bowl this year, that means that they're not only playing. So they played the Jets this week, which is a tough game, even though they won by a lot. That defense is very good. They're going to play Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo in consecutive weeks. Then they're going to go directly in, if they don't have the one seed, they're going to go directly into playing that first week, right?
Yeah.
They're going to play the
Yep.
next 7 games against playoff teams. I just don't like their odds, man. For us, we've talked about them
Yeah.
a lot, with them not being able to beat some of these good teams or teams with winning records or competitive teams. I don't like Miami's chances at all.
Yeah. I'm still on the camp with you where I don't trust Miami to win anything. And the reason I think they're going to beat Dallas is because if you think that Buffalo's running game is good, boy, Miami's running game is leaps and bounds better than Buffalo's. And
Yeah.
imagine what Miami can do to them. So
Yeah.
uh, I, I think they're going to beat Dallas. I'm with you. I don't think they're going to beat Baltimore. Like that's just like Baltimore is just too good defensively.
Hmm.
Uh, and they're gonna yeah. Baltimore's also a weird team too that like does like just like there are some weeks where their defense just plays lights out, and then there are other games where they like blow 2 touchdown leads in the fourth quarter, and you're like, I don't. They're very Jekyll and Hyde that team. But yeah, I'm with you. I still don't trust Miami. I think
Yeah.
them beating Dallas this week will get me to trust them a little bit, but they haven't won a game all season that they've needed to win.
Yeah, every time that they, like, remember they had that game against Buffalo early in the season where we were like, "Oh, okay. They're going to crush Buffalo," and they got their butts kicked. And I
Buffalo hung up 48 on them. Yeah,
yeah, I just
yeah,
I don't know. I know the defense is playing better, but they're playing better against poorer competition. And I just, for
yeah.
me, that doesn't mean anything, right? That I don't know. But let's dive in here because I definitely want to talk about Baltimore and the Week 16 games. One of the ones we're going to talk
Woo!
about. This first one's a doozy, man. And Baltimore at San Francisco. Now I just updated this today. It looks like San Francisco. The point they ended up jumping 1 point in a day on this. So instead of four
Yeah,
and a half, San Francisco's now getting 5.5. The over under stays the same at 45.5. But I mean, Christmas Day in San Francisco, 59 degrees and rainy. Nice Christmas Day. I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just,
Can't beat it. You know.
yeah, I mean, I look at this. Listen, both teams are respective number one seeds in their conference right now, right? Both teams have good defenses. Baltimore's number one right now. San Francisco's number two in points allowed. Conveniently, they both have top five offenses as well, which is a pretty
Yeah,
potent combination right there to have that. And then, the last piece here, Baltimore, they've won 4 straight. San Francisco, they're riding a 6 game winning streak. So I look at that. I mean, it's going to be a great matchup. A previous Super Bowl matchup. Am I right?
yeah. So this was the Super Bowl when it was
The
the
Harbaugh
Harbaugh brothers
brothers.
coaching
Yeah.
against each
Okay.
other,
Yep.
and the power went out at the start of the third quarter in that game.
Ah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, and San Francisco led this like big comeback, and this was when Kaepernick was playing for him, and he had him right on the goal line, and they just couldn't punch it in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Flacco ended up winning that, right?
yeah, and then signed a huge because he was a free agent after that year, and
Yep.
signed a massive contract that everybody immediately regretted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
I do like seeing him getting time in Cleveland, man. That really does make me happy.
hilarious.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's hilarious.
yeah. We'll jump into that in a little bit, but just looking at Baltimore, listen, I mean Lamar's such a dynamic playmaker, especially with his legs. I don't understand how San Francisco is going to be able to contain him. Now they've got a great defense. Don't get me wrong, Bosa, Warner, just two to mention, right? They added in Chase Young. They've got all of these guys that they've added in that are very, very good. Some young talent on that team too. Obviously, guys,
Yeah,
I'm leaving out like Ward and stuff too. But these, how are they able to keep him under control? Because it seems like every time that they're able to flush him out of the pocket or get pressure on him, he's able to squiggle out and turn it into like a 7 yard gain. And when you keep that defense on the field, it's going to tire him out a bit.
yeah. I think what was like concerning to me with San Francisco is Kyler Murray kind of provided a bit of a blueprint of what you can kind of do against this defense.
Oh
Like
man,
he
yeah,
wasn't like he wasn't like lights out, but like he did enough where you're like, he ran for 50 yards. Like he was running for 8 yards a carry on the
Yeah.
ground against this team. Like
Mhm.
it is doable. Um, I think what concerns me with Baltimore though is they did lose Keaton Mitchell for the year. He
Did you
tore his
see,
ACL.
did you see that?
That
It
was
was
that was
awful.
gross.
Yeah, it really was,
Yeah,
man. Super gruesome knee injury.
yeah. So they're gonna have to rely on Gus Edwards. And they just have a lot of dudes right now that are like questionable. And but the thing is with Lamar is there's no way to game plan against that kind of speed. Like in practice, like you can't. I don't understand how you prepare for that. And that's we've said that before.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to prepare for that. And while I think the 49ers defense is going to be fast, Lamar has such good pocket awareness that the moment he feels that the pocket's collapsing, if he starts accelerating, good luck catching him because you're not going to like
It's so interesting you say that too. Like Lamar, I read this tweet about him saying that like it seems like he's always running at like 80% and always
yeah,
making good decisions. Like it never looks like he's actually running full speed. And because of that, I think he's able to make really good decisions. But if he were to run full speed, you're like, oh my god, he's running at 80%, just running away from people. It almost reminds me of like when you used to see Usain Bolt race. You'd
yeah.
see him run, and you're like, dude, that guy's not running full speed. Like,
But he's blowing people out of the water
yeah,
still.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
crushing people, but you're like, all right, but he's got more in the tank, right? So it's I don't know.
yeah.
When I see that, I think there's a ton of pressure on him this game because Keaton Mitchell was their change of pace back. Now they don't have that anymore. It puts more on his plate. Yes, Zay Flowers has been playing much better. Odell Beckham starting to come into his own, which is great. Rashad Bateman, he's a nobody. Isaiah Likely has he finally had his first good game since filling in for that void that Mark Andrews left, which Mark Andrews is not replaceable. I don't care what other people
No.
say. He's just not. Um, but Isaiah Likely's a freak, and I mean he creates mismatches for this defense. So maybe he's will be that outlet that Lamar can go to, because there's no one on the San Francisco secondary that can jump up as high as this guy. I mean he's
Nope.
an absolute monster. So I don't know. And then I look at the other side, right? San Francisco, like it's not all Baltimore upside, right? Like San Francisco has an
Yeah.
absolutely like a loaded roster with talent, and it definitely. I know we've talked about them multiple times in previous weeks. They just laid a massive beatdown on Arizona. Christian McCaffrey looks like he's on a mission this year, right? I don't. People were talking about Purdy for MVP. It's like they skipped over other guys. Christian McCaffrey has to be the front runner. There's no one even close to
I
him.
agree.
I don't think anyone's even come close to him. I think he's 300 yards ahead in rushing for the rushing title right
Yeah.
now.
So right now he has 244 carries for 1,292 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground.
Yep.
He's averaging 5.3 yards a touch.
Dude, but he's got 20 touchdowns on the season. I know
Yeah,
Mostert
and
does
then
too, but
his receiving stats though are just as insane. Like 57 catches, 509 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
yeah, yeah, he's a
Like
beast, man.
give the like I know it seems like we don't give the MVP to non quarterbacks anymore, which is fucking weird. I
Yeah,
think AP was the last one. Like I don't know what else he has to do.
yeah, give it to him and don't say anything. And I'm pretty sure, well, maybe it was last year that he threw a touchdown. And I saw that and I was
Yeah,
like, dude, this guy, he's just awesome. He really is. And it's not even, he's unselfish in doing so. He scored 20 touchdowns this year and he probably could have had eight more. I mean,
yeah,
I look at it. The first play of the game last week, he ends up running 80 yards on the first play and gets brought down at the one, and they end up giving it to another guy to run it in. And I just look at that and I'm like, all
yeah.
right, like you didn't see him sulking on the sideline. Like, as much as it pains me to say this next part, Al, Debo Samuel is rounding into form. He has been
He is.
playing very, very good lately. For
Welcome.
yeah.
Welcome, Willie. Welcome.
All right. Let it just wash over you. So yeah,
Yeah,
but the question for me, the big question is not about Debo or any of those guys like Trent Williams. I mean, like I said, there's so much talent on here with Kittle, Ayuk, all of these guys, but it still comes back to Purdy, and it's going to no matter what. This game, he's got to go out there and lead this team to a win. This game, it can't be, oh, he's a system quarterback. He just handed the ball off. No, he needs to go out and win this game for this team. And I don't know. Do you think Baltimore can get enough guys after him that they're going to rattle his cage? Is that something you think is going to be possible?
I think that has been kind of the MO with Brock Purdy is that if you kind of bring pressure, you can rattle him. But like he's kind of shown that sorry, he's kind of shown that that's not the case though. Like he kind of stands in there and he's taken some hits. Like
He
that's the
has.
thing is he's willing to stand in for that extra second to make sure that guy's open to get that throw.
This line's done an incredible job for him this year too. I mean, that's another thing too. When you got a guy like Trent Williams taking away like usually the best pass rusher on a team, but I mean,
Makes your life a
Clowney's,
lot easier.
yeah, I mean, but dude, look at it. Clowney's been a beast this year. Uh, Queen, you've got also Roquan Smith. They've been awesome this year. The secondary's been very good. I just, who is it? Kyle Phillips, their safety, Kyle Hamilton. He's an
Yeah,
absolute stud, man. An absolute stud. I don't know. This team's been very good. The most concerning part is not the offense for me, man. And it's not even Purdy because I think Purdy's going to get it done this game. My
I think so
concern
too.
my concern is this defense because I've been watching them and it's not as concerning that they gave up 29 points to Arizona. Listen, that can happen. Two of those touchdowns were in the fourth quarter, garbage time. I get that. Yes, they were up 3 scores. I know like okay, Arizona comes back, they score the two touchdowns. I get that. But they gave up 400 yards. Arizona had 22 first downs and held the ball for 35 minutes in this game. That's not good
Yeah,
for a defense to be on the field that long. That's almost double the amount of time that San Francisco usually spends on the field, right? Like
right.
that's just not
I
good. Guys get hurt when they're out there that long. They get tired when they're
yeah,
out there that long. I don't know.
I think it's a fluke. I think this game was a fluke.
Okay.
And I say this just because like if you just go back and like I'm gonna read you the last like 9 or 10 games that
Hmm.
points they've let up 16, 19, 13, 14, 3. And then the three losses, they let up 31 to Cincinnati,
Yep.
they let up 22 to Minnesota, and 19 to Cleveland. And then they've let up 10, 16, 12, 23, and 7. That's all the games this year. Like
Yeah.
their defense is usually pretty rock solid. I think
Yeah.
that for whatever reason, I Arizona has like just enough weapons, and they're a frisky team.
Yeah.
Like I'm not as worried about it.
Okay.
I think a lot will be. I think this is a really good team offensively in Baltimore, so I think this is going to be a really good test for them.
Yeah.
I think that if they really struggle, I think this is where I can be like, I can agree with you and be like, hey, look, San Francisco's defense a little shoddy, like, but until then, like their defense has kind of kicked the shit out of most teams this year.
Well,
Like I
they
know they
get.
had that 3 game skid, but
Yeah.
even those games were like weirdly close.
I mean, San Francisco can also lose this game and still lead the NFC. That's the other piece of it too. They don't have to win it, and I hope that they don't feel that way because right now they have a better record than Philly does,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I
yeah,
just
they do. Yeah,
I look at that, and so they could lose this and still own the tiebreaker over Philly and Dallas. I mean, it just I hope they don't rest their hat on that. But who do you have in this game, man?
I think San Francisco is going to win this game. I think this is going to be a little closer than you had it. I think it's going to be 34-31 San Francisco.
Ooh,
I
okay.
think this is
Yeah.
going to be a shootout.
All right. Yeah, I picked 31-21. I think San Fran's going to
Yeah,
keep them in check, but we'll see. It's going to be a great game to watch. I really hope it lives up to the hype, and I hope that it doesn't turn into one of the teams kicking the crap out of the other one because it would be
yeah,
really disappointing. Like this is a potential Super Bowl matchup. We want to see a great game from it. Um,
yeah. if I'm San Francisco though, like this, I know that you don't technically need this game, but like you kind of should have this game just
Yeah.
because like you don't want to like mess around and like you still want that one game lead on either Dallas or Philly and still have the head to head matchup win. So it's essentially a 2 game lead over them.
Yeah.
Like you kind of want to still have like as much comfort as you can going into the last couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Give yourself as much confidence and as much cushion as you can. So,
like yeah, don't fuck around with it. Like
yeah, or you'll find out. So,
yeah, exactly.
all right.
Exactly.
Well, so we will also wanted to cover a second game today, just because, as Al and I talked about it, there's a lot of playoff implications that come down based on the outcome of this game. So we've got Cleveland at Houston, and this is an interesting one because Houston's getting 2.5. The over under on it's 42 and a half. I mean, just looking at a few of the things on the surface, right? CJ Stroud's questionable. He took that big hit in that Jets game, and it's just kind of scary because he's the engine that makes this team run. He really is. I mean, they were able to snag the win over Tennessee this past week, but uh, Cleveland's a bit different than Tennessee. They're. I think
Yeah.
they play a lot better defense. They've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback leading their team now. And I mean, this team needs Stroud in order to be competitive in the playoffs. I just want to be clear about that. Like, if they have one of their other quarterbacks going in there, I thought it was going to be Davis Mills, and then all of a sudden it's Case Keenum. But I look at this. They need Stroud in order to be able to do that. And again, as we
Yeah.
had mentioned before, this is one of the five teams sitting at 8-6. All they're all tied in the AFC South. Besides Tennessee, right? You got Jacksonville, Indy,
Yeah.
and Houston. They're all at 8-6 right now.
Yep. And what worries me with Houston is even if they had CJ Stroud, I think that Tank Dell season ending injury is bigger than like I think we all realize.
Hmm.
Because like you have Nico Collins and that's fine, but like Tank Dell gave you that extra option, and now like they just feel a little more one dimensional. And I know they had Case Keenum at quarterback on Sunday,
Well, Brown
but
was getting the majority of the catches too when you looked at it. Like, and I mean, he was doing all right,
yeah,
but dude, when you have a guy like Tank Dell out there, and it's wild because he's what? He's not even 6 feet tall, super small, super quick.
yeah,
Just, I mean, he was such a playmaker for them. He was electric. To lose a guy like him, whew, you're right. It's
yeah,
devastating, man.
yeah. I on the other side of it though too with like Cleveland, I think this is going to be a rock fight. Is what this is like, and this is no offense to no disrespect to Joe Flacco, but like Joe Flacco's best years are behind
Yeah.
him, and I mean he really struggled against that Bears team. He really did. Like, and honestly, it feels like they have the hail mary at the end where the guy like drops it. It's in the guy's lap and it bounces out and becomes an interception.
Yeah, they
Like
should have won that game. Yeah, I mean,
they
it's
should have, and they should have won that game
yeah.
easily, and they did. And I am a little concerned about this game, but I honestly don't know even who to pick. Like to be honest with you, because like these two teams are a lot of the same. Like they have like one wide receiver that they really rely on. Cleveland has a much better tight end. Um, honestly, Houston's a better coached team, and that really kind of showed in that Tennessee game in overtime. Like they just kind of kept their cool.
Hmm.
That's a young team, and they kept their cool. Like because like the play before they had like what they thought was the walk off touchdown, and it got called back as a holding. And for them to be like, okay, wasn't our play, and for them to still drive down, get the field goal, and win it, like that showed me a lot from that team.
Yeah. I,
So,
I I definitely think Stefanski's done more with less this year. Not less than Houston, but I'm just saying like less in the general sense because losing Nick Chubb, losing Deshaun Watson, like those are two big pieces to be able to lose this year, and he still kept this team like this team's still in the thick of it for the playoffs. I've been kind of impressed with him for being able to do that, and Cleveland's a team that I seem to not want to pick every week, yet they still are there. You know, it's I don't know.
Cleveland's going to make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean,
They
what do
are.
you think?
They're not going to win the division, but they're going to make the playoffs.
Right. What do you think Cleveland needs to do to win this game?
They're going to limit their mistakes. They've got it. I feel like teams with Cleveland, like Cleveland gets these like great chances against teams and they don't capitalize on it and they settle for a lot of field goals, which is like, which is fine if you're playing the Bears. But like when you're playing real playoff teams, like you need the seven.
Yeah.
You need the 7 points. And
At least the six, right? You can't
yeah,
control the extra point,
yeah,
but at least 6 points, right?
yeah. I Flacco's gonna have to like kind of he's gonna have to revert back to old Flacco for like the next couple of months because like Cleveland's defense is good enough that that's a Super Bowl defense. The problem is offensively they are just a mess. They have hit with so many injuries
Hmm.
that, but this defense can keep him in the game if Flacco can just limit his mistakes.
They need to keep riding that connection with Njoku too. That's
Yeah,
come alive in the last 4 weeks, and it's been very noticeable. The last 3 weeks in particular, obviously since Flacco started, I know he's gone 2-1. He's been turning the ball over a lot, but Njoku, that connection is a real thing, and he's a matchup nightmare for teams. He really is. Like
sure
he
is.
is a big physical dude. Don't forget, he came in. Remember him walking into the stadium early in the year after that accident he had with like all the burns all over his face, and he had the mask on. Like
Yeah,
this dude is a tough, tough dude. I just
yeah,
man. So who
yeah.
who do you have? Who do you have winning this game?
Oh God, I can't believe I'm going to pick Joe Flacco in a game.
Oh,
God damn it. I think it's going to be Cleveland 17, Houston 13.
so I'm picking as if Stroud's playing. I'm gonna I'm gonna pick 21-17 Houston. I I
Joe
just
Flacco's going to fuck me. I know it.
yeah.
I know it. It's
Then
what I
we've
get.
we've
It's
got
what
the
I get.
title for episode 31. He did it.
Joe Flacco fucked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
Oh, God.
well now we get to move on to something fun for you because we've had some big stuff going on recently in terms of baseball free agency. So the Dodgers, man, it seems like okay, they're not going to stay put after Otani. They need to keep making moves. They go out
Yeah.
and I mean they traded for Glasnow. What do you? Wow. Oh, what kind of
Fuck
impact do
me.
you think this is going to have?
Well, first of all, this is the most Tampa move ever.
Hmm.
They're like, hey, you know what? This guy's going to hit the market pretty soon.
Yep.
We're not going to pay him. Uh, so there's that. But honestly, like this was the first time where it's like, son of a bitch.
Yep.
Like, because remember last episode when we talked about Otani signing with the Dodgers, I was like kind of joking, but like also not joking. The Dodgers still don't have any starting pitching. Like Walker Bueller's coming off a Tommy John, so
Hmm.
you don't know what you're going to get from. He's going to be an innings restriction. You still have Clayton Kershaw, but the dude's 104 years old,
Yep.
and he's like a bad sneeze away from like hurting his back. Uh, like
And
they
also
need
messing you in the playoffs again.
Bobby Miller. Like you don't know what you're going to get from him year two. Like he had a really good rookie year, but like can he capitalize on that? I'm not sure. So like getting Glass now is like that's a big pickup for them, and it sounds like they're working on getting him signed to an extension too. So he's going to be a long term Dodger. So
Yeah, and I don't think they're done yet either. Like that's
I don't.
that's the crazy
I think they're
thing.
going to get Yamamoto. I really do.
Oh man. They
And
could be
from
in it
what
to
I've been,
really win like the next couple years, man. Like they're not satisfied.
the
Yeah.
Sox. I was just reading today. The Sox offered Yamamoto $300 million. So
Wow.
yeah. So
Well,
I
so
think he's going to get 300 plus from somebody. So, and it's probably going to be the Dodgers. Like,
uh, well,
yeah,
another California team I saw sign Jung Hoo Lee. Um,
yeah,
they claimed
yeah.
in the press conference, I thought it was very cheesy, but they claimed it was a perfect fit. So I want to get your perspective on this. Do you really think he's a perfect fit there?
For the Giants, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
let's break it down.
Like
Why do you
he
think that?
so the the way he hits the ball is something that's like really impressive because he's not. Think of it. I hate comparing him to Ishiro because he's not Ishiro, but like his swing, like the dude just doesn't hit a lot of home runs. Like he
Okay.
hits for average.
Hmm.
Like in the KBO, like I'm just gonna read you like the last like he's played in the KBO for 7 seasons. This has been his batting average every year. He got hurt this year, so he smaller sample size, but he's hit 324, 355, 336, 333, 360, 349, and 318. The dude can just hit the ball.
A lot.
Like,
Very
yeah,
well.
yeah. And he's got a swing where like he's fast and he's got a really good he's a slap hitter. And like he's a really good slap hitter. And the fact that the Giants got him, like that he's gonna love playing in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That fan base is super passionate, and if like you do well for them, they will love you for life.
Hmm.
Like, so I was super glad. Like, I would have loved the Sox to have him, but like honestly, him going to the Giants, I'm glad he's playing for a team that just really loves him.
Now,
So
why didn't the Dodgers go after him?
I don't think I don't think that they needed him. I think that
Okay.
they thought that I honestly like you couldn't have like he's a great outfielder, so like, but I think they were content with what they had.
Okay.
Yeah,
It seems
I
like
think that they made it they made an effort, but I don't think they made their best effort with him.
okay. Am I wrong
So
in thinking he's probably going to be a leadoff hitter for them?
probably for the
Okay.
Giants, probably yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, you look at LA, they've got Mookie Betts probably leading off there, Freddie Freeman, and then you were saying Otani's going to come in right after that. So, I mean,
yeah. Otani's probably going to hit second in that lineup, which
ooh,
is
really?
fucking terrible. I would imagine he's going to hit second because like I think Freeman's probably going to hit third, and then I think you're going to have like Will Smith or Max Muncy hitting fourth for them.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, no, big signing. I'm really excited. Like he's a guy I think his game's going to translate really well to Major League Baseball, and
Hmm.
I think he's going to have a big year this year.
Should see a lot
So,
of Hooley jerseys out there. So,
and he's only 20. He's only 25. Like that's
yeah.
the thing too is he's coming on the prime of his career right now.
Yeah, he's got
So
at least a good 12 years that he can get in Major League Baseball. So,
yeah.
maybe
Also
more
too,
than
the
that.
other thing with him doesn't strike out a lot too,
Yeah,
which I
that's
think is very key. Like, and that's kind of a big thing in the KBO in general. Like, dudes in like you're playing Korea and like Japan, like they really emphasize like taking a lot of pitches. Like, you don't strike out often over there.
well.
So
I think maybe that might have been why you drew the comparison to Ichiro because I don't feel like typically a guy that hits that well isn't going to strike out that much. Like they're always going to try
no,
to be able to put the ball into play or at least get the barrel on the ball, you know. Um,
yeah,
so make some sort of contact. But the last one, and maybe this isn't as big as the first two, right, that we're talking about, but the Royals ended up signing Michael Waka and Hunter Renfro too. Not the one from
yeah,
the Raiders, but another
yeah.
Hunter Renfro. So is this really big news, or what were your feelings on this one?
To kind of back that up with the Royals, they've kind of been doing a lot. So they also signed Seth Lugo and they also signed Will Smith, who for the last 3 years has played on a World Series winning team, which has been impressive.
Yep.
Um, they're making all these like kind of tiny moves, and they're going to be a team. Well, I don't think they're going to be great next year. They're they're going to be tough. Like that's not these aren't going to be gimme games with them. Like they're gonna kind of surprise a lot of teams, and I wouldn't be shocked if they won like 75 games next year.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
like they're not going to contend, but like they're definitely like if you're not paying attention, they'll take 2 out of 3 from you if you're not careful.
Okay.
So yeah, and they have a decent farm system that's still a couple years away. Like I kind of like all these moves. They're like 1 to 2 year moves. Like kind of while you're just waiting for guys to get called up. And I like it. I think it's a great move. So,
Awesome. All right. Were there any other moves that you saw in free agency that you wanted to talk about or discuss?
no, that's really it. Like I said, Yamamoto at this point is like really the big domino to fall.
Yeah.
Like, where is he going to go? Um, the fact that the Sox are in play for him makes me really excited. And I am holding out all the hope that we get him, but I
Yeah,
think you and I know how this is going to end.
yeah. Well, listen,
So
if you see him in an Atlanta uniform, I won't be disappointed, right? So
no, no,
I don't think anyone, if they see him in their uniform, will be upset or disappointed about it. We'll make
I'll be
room.
pissed if he's in a Yankees uniform. I'll
Yeah,
be honest with you.
yeah, I
I will
guess
be
so.
big fucking mad.
But
I'd
Yankee,
rather him go to the Mets.
oh man, they were talking about that at the beginning. That seemed like a Met signing. So I think you
Yeah.
were mentioning that. So anyhow, let's break down. We had the trivia question last week. I believe it was who was the $55 million player that was in the NFL. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was the who makes the highest with Shohei Otani making 70 million a year allegedly.
Yep.
It's really two, but
Allegedly, yeah.
so the question was who in the NFL makes the highest annual salary? And
Hmm.
he makes 55 million a year, and it is Joe Burrow
Yeah, it
of
is.
the Bengals.
It is
Yep,
Joe Burrow. So
yeah,
he deserves it too. I like it. He's going to obviously putting a stamp on that quarterback market. So, you look at
yeah,
the top guys that are paid there, and it's crazy. People want to make talk a lot of heat about Daniel Jones. Well, he's making 15 million less than that. And there's quarterbacks
yeah,
that are, cost less than 15 million on rosters. So, in this year alone,
yeah,
I don't know what you felt about that, but it seems like we've seen so many quarterbacks. Like, if you don't have two good quarterbacks on your roster, it's almost like you can't compete. The two
yeah,
guys that we were been used to getting hurt every year with Lamar and Tua have stayed healthy. So
yeah.
even though Tua
Also,
had
Jake
that,
Browning is.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say with Jake Browning, like he's gonna get himself paid, and I can't wait for that. Like
Yeah, he will.
he's gonna get himself paid by somebody, not like a ridiculous sum, but somebody will give him like Geno money
Yeah.
just to be start.
I
Yeah,
was just gonna mention, did you see that massive gash in Tua's arm?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That was pretty gnarly.
yeah. What was that from? A helmet or?
Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
it
that
was
was
gross.
rough. Rough. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, listen,
yeah,
you want to give him another trivia question for next week?
yeah. So it's a baseball one. This is kind of a
Ooh.
funky one. So there are two teams in Major League Baseball history that have never won a division title.
Oh
Who
man.
are they?
All right. Two teams that
Yep,
have never won a division title.
never won a division title. Yeah,
Okay.
one of those teams have ironically won two World Series. So
Hey, there we go.
yeah,
All right, and we will answer that next week for us.
yeah,
Interesting week because we'll be back to obviously break down the games from week 16, get into a little bit of week 17, but we are right at the end of the NFL season. It's regular season.
Whew.
It's kind of crazy. So, yeah, it's definitely been nuts. But I just anything else you wanted to cover today at all?
Nah, Willie, that's it, man. As always, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I love you. And stay safe.
Love you too, bro. Listen, it's been a great one, and we will be back next Tuesday with episode 31.
Woo.
All right. Listen, you take care, bro. You have a great night.
Peace.
Peace.